to the Teen Town Hall meeting for Delaware County. My name is Donna Cooper. I am the Executive Director of Public Citizens for Children and Youth. To kick off this Teen Town Hall meeting, we are going to, for one moment, go to gallery view for all of the panelists. So if you are not on video, please do so. We want to take a picture to record that you're all here with us today. So please, if you're not on video at this point, we'll take a picture. It'll be a little noisy, but thank you very much. And I'm looking at my folks, see if they got the photo. Hopefully that has happened. While we're taking that photo, I just want to tell you a little bit about why we're doing this. Over the last couple weeks, Public Citizens for Children and Youth has been holding teen town hall meetings across the Southeast. Our first meeting was in Bucks County, and we were so grateful that almost all of the Pennsylvania legislative delegation joined Congressman Brian Fitzpatrick for a conversation about the importance of funding our schools. Last week, we had a terrific teen town hall in Montgomery County, where many members of the Pennsylvania legislative delegation joined Madeline Dean, Congresswoman Madeline Dean, for an important conversation about the need to fund our schools. And today, we're honored to have all of you from Delaware County joining us to listen to teens from across Delaware County speak to the important issues of public education. We have 112 people with us on this Zoom meeting, and I will remind everybody that as well, most of the media in our region is with us this morning. I would like to begin by just thanking the superintendents who made it possible for us to recruit these great students. Dr. Eric Pugh from Chester Upland, Daniel Palmer from the Delaware County Technical High School, Dr. Mark Bertrando from Garnet Valley, Maureen Roush, Dr. Maureen Roush from Havertown Township, Bernadette Riley from Interborough, George Steinkopf from Pendelco, Kenneth Batchelor from Radnor, Leanne Wetzel from Ridley, Eleanor DiMarino Linen from Rose Tree Media, Yesir Roundtree from Southeast Delco, the acting super, Dr. Anthony Barber from Springfield, Dr. Dan McGarity from Upper Darby, Thomas McLaughlin from Wallingford Swarthmore, the assistant principal for the Strathaven High School, and Jane Ann Harbert and Dr. Eric B. Coates from the William Penn School District. We're so grateful you helped us recruit these students. And I also want to extend always our gratitude to our terrific partner, Adrienne Irving. She's the Director of Legislative and Community Services for the Delaware County IU. You all know her well. Amy Goldman, who is the Vice President of the Radnor School Board, an incredible partner for PCCY, and Larry Feinberg, who's the President of the Haverford School Board, also a partner of PCCY's. So we could not have had an opportunity for you all, our state legislators and your congressperson, to hear from these students today without these extraordinary people helping us recruit the wonderful kids you'll hear today. To kick us off, we are so honored that Congresswoman Scanlon is able to be here. Her schedule's very tight this morning. As you can imagine, things in Washington, and as we know, things in Harrisburg are very tight. We know many of our lawmakers have been called to a noon meeting, and I believe some have even been called to meetings right now. So I recognize that you will be on and off. I'd like to turn the floor over to Congresswoman Mary Gay Scanlon, who is gonna make some comments about how things look in Washington as it relates to helping our schools. And we'll have a couple questions from students for her directly. Congresswoman Scanlon, the floor is yours.
That'd be great. Thank you so much, Donna. And thank you to PCCY for all the work that your organization does, both with respect to education equity and other issues that impact children, not just in Philadelphia, but throughout our region and across the Commonwealth. It's really, really important work. And for decades, PCCY has been leading that charge to make sure that we know what's actually going on with our kids and can come up with policy-based solutions to address those issues. So really appreciate that. I've been citing your underwater report on Delaware County repeatedly for the last year or so. It's very, very helpful to us. But at any rate, we're here to talk about education. And in particular, we're here to talk about education with the folks who are in the midst of it. So I really appreciate the participation today of our student advocates. It's my favorite part of the job, is getting to go out to schools or interact with folks. We had a virtual meeting with some kids from Penwood just yesterday. An entire 9th grade class had written issues-based letters to my office, and I was supposed to go out there and have a town hall with them on all the issues they raised, but we did it virtually in a Zoom meeting. So really appreciate the energy and the passion of our high school students who are really leading the way on a lot of these issues. You know, I keep saying that the thing that the pandemic has done in this country is really exposed or put into high relief a lot of pre-existing issues, including education equity. And the fact that many of our suburban school districts were able to move quite seamlessly to remote learning, where some of our more financially challenged districts had to crowdsource computers, is kind of the biggest and worst juxtaposition that we might want to have. Our office has been hearing from folks, from educators, from kids, from parents throughout this crisis about what people need, what we need to do better for our schools. And we're going to keep trying to push on that. We've now passed 5 coronavirus relief packages in the House. 4 have been signed into law. The CARES Act was the last one signed into law, and that included $13.5 billion in emergency relief for K through 12 schools. Pennsylvania got $523 million of that. We know it's not enough. We're trying to put more relief in additional packages. The HEROES Act did include additional support for K through 12 education, but that has not yet been signed into law. And in fact, we're still trying to persuade the White House and the Senate that more needs to be done. So that will be ongoing. You know, it's really important that our students and parents continue to advocate to get the resources they need. I'm a big believer in public education. I always will be. And so we're going to try to continue supporting you in those efforts, whether it's advocating in DC or, you know, trying to work with our state and local officials to make sure that our public schools get the resources they need, because it's fundamental. And so with that, I'll turn it back over to you and get to the important part.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman. And we're so proud that the Southeastern delegation has a bipartisan, at least in the House, support for public education. And we are really hopeful that the same will be the case as we move into the depths of the negotiations over the state budget and the use of the CARES Act resources in the Pennsylvania legislature. We're so grateful to the lawmakers who are here today. Because your schedule requires you to jump to a meeting, I would like to introduce to you 2 students who have questions specifically for you in Congress. Sheila Esgro is from the Radnor High School, and she has a question for you, and so does Andrew Mary from Garnet Valley. So we're going to start with Sheila. Sheila, please ask your question.
Hi, my name's Sheila Esgro, and I'm a junior at Radnor High School. When us students were asked to come up with a story to present to the representatives of our state regarding school funding, I immediately thought of school bus transportation in our district. And a few years ago, Radnor High School cut funds to transportation department. Many families, including my own, relied and still rely on this transportation, with many parents and guardians leaving early in the morning for work, and with no other way to get to school, buses become the only option. When these funds got cut, fewer buses circulated the routes in the morning, pushing many students' pickup time later when they missed the bus. These buses became more crowded and it became more common to arrive late to school or get dropped off after school later. After talking to a few of my friends and classmates, they addressed that this was still going on, even though I don't still use the buses. So Congresswoman Mary Gay Scanlon, how will you ensure that the transportation system in not only Radnor, but in all school districts in Pennsylvania will be provided to all in the most efficient way possible?
Well, so this, hopefully some of the money that Congress has allocated for emergency funding can flow through the state to the individual school districts. But I know from my days on as a school board member that Pennsylvania law closely regulates school busing in the state. And so basically there's no requirement to have any busing at all, but then once a school district chooses to have busing, it has to do so in an equitable way. In recent years, with our school district budgets getting tighter and tighter, because Pennsylvania as a state does a bad job of funding our schools. It's about 47th, I think, in the country in terms of state share of funding. Transportation has been one of the places that our school districts have had to go to cut costs so they can keep the instructional support in the classrooms. So it has been an ongoing issue. And I think it does go back to trying to make sure we have better funding for our school districts across the board. Now, what we're trying to do at the federal level, in addition to some emergency money, is to increase the funding for the IDEA. 40 some years ago, Congress established that folks with disabilities have a right to special education, and Congress was supposed to fully fund it, but it never has. It only funds a little portion of it. And if Congress doesn't fund that right, then it pushes down to the states and our local tax bases. So that's one thing that Congress can do, is to increase that funding so that it takes some of the pressure off our local taxes. The other area is to provide more support for Title I, which flows to low-income students, and again, helping take some of the pressure off our state and local taxes. But again, a lot of this is going to have to go back to how our state structures education, because the state actually has the biggest say in that part.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And it's very helpful to hear that there is movement at the federal level on IDEA, because this is an area where we do compete for resources in general in the school district. So thank you. Andrew Mary is from Garnet Valley, and he has another question for you, Congresswoman.
So I have a COVID-related question. So I'm sure you all know that schools in Pennsylvania have shifted to online distance learning. And I can say as a student, with for no fault to the faculty, the learning quality just isn't as good through online learning. I have multiple teachers in my family, and I know that teachers in general are very concerned that long-term students might not be staying at grade level in reading and math. So what steps would you take at the federal or at the state level to help make sure that students stay at grade level? And then how could funding be a part of that solution?
Well, certainly, as we all transition to remote learning, remote work where possible, everybody's trying to balance, the need for social distancing to keep people physically safe with how do we do our jobs, how do we provide an education. One of the areas that I've been particularly interested in is the issue of broadband and connectivity. Because there's a lot of attention paid to rural broadband and the fact that people in our less populated states don't have access to the internet. But here in our district, anywhere from 15 to 30% of our households don't have access to the internet. And often it's not because it's not available in those communities, it's because people can't afford it. So how can we transition to any form of online learning if 15 to 30% of our community can't even access it? And that also extends to ability to access telehealth and other services, particularly as we see state, local governments, even the federal government, trying to cut costs by moving to online platforms for things like the census or registering to vote. So it's a broad issue that we need to grapple with as a whole for the country. With respect to the need to not just rely on remote learning, I think everyone's trying to figure out how to safely reopen our schools. I know CHOP, Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, put out guidelines this week that I think will be helpful. My colleagues and I have been pressing the CDC and the administration, the federal administration, to provide better guidance to the country as a whole, because we can't do this in a piecemeal fashion. It's really important that we get the best thinking, the best resources, and the best research on this as quickly as possible. Now, we are fortunate because a number of other countries shut down with the virus before we did and are now reopening their schools so we can learn from their experience. But I think the question is going to be how we do it as safely as possible without all becoming some giant Darwin experience. So, I'm looking forward to working with our state and local officials to make sure they have the resources so we can get kids back into school. We know particularly with little kids who are not, able to manipulate and get online as easily as our older students, and for whom brain development is in its early stages, we know it's really, really important to get them back in a situation where they can learn at the age appropriate way they need to. So a lot of pressures with a lot of cross-cutting different issues that we have to resolve. So no magic bullet here, but we're all going to keep working on it. Good question.
Yes, thank you so much. And Congresswoman, I will say that this matter also came up when we were on with Congressman Fitzpatrick, and he also shared the concern about internet access. And so again, I think we're very fortunate to have a bipartisan congressional delegation in our region really working on these issues, and it's great. I'm grateful for that. I know that you're very busy. I will say that one of our
Hi, Charles. It's Jennifer from State Rep Leanne Krueger's office. How are you today?
Sorry about that. I know one of our audience members really spoke to the importance of school districts really beginning to plan now for how they offer quality instruction online were we to ever enter into this kind of crisis again. And we know that the Pennsylvania Department of Education is going to be asking that people use CARES Act money for that very planning. And, but there's a lot of infrastructure that's needed behind that. And the U.S. Department of Education could be very helpful if they helped think about what school districts would need as we move into this. And I realize that's complicated. There's lots of agendas there. We don't need to get into that now, but nevertheless, a federal-state partnership in thinking about the educational infrastructure is really critical to making sure we're ready next time something like this happens. Do you have any parting comments you'd like to offer before you have to run to your committee meeting?
Sure, and the reason I have to hop off is after we scheduled this, Congress voted to begin allowing remote hearings, and then they scheduled one for me today. So we are going to be attempting to have remote hearings this afternoon with the Rules Committee. So it's everybody's learning. I couldn't agree more with respect to the need to, put our best complete resources at this issue. When the schools first shut down, we heard a lot from teachers, parents, districts on what were they to do. There wasn't a plan in place. And some districts took the position that, well, if we can't provide an education for everyone, because of special education limitations or because of connectivity limitations, we won't provide one for anyone. And that was unacceptable. So we did work with some districts. We sent a letter to the State Department of Education saying, you need to provide guidance here. You have access to more resources than individual school districts. Provide the best thinking, provide the best collective action. And I believe the Federal Department of Education should be doing the same thing. We shouldn't be hanging individual states or school districts out to dry and saying, figure it out yourself. There is a reason that we have government, and that is to provide help in situations such as this. So very much in favor of that. Before I hop off, can I give some homework?
Sure.
I would really like to give some homework, and that is with respect to the census. The census day was supposed to be April 1st, and we were going to start having folks come out into our communities to collect census information for those who hadn't been able to do it online. But obviously there's been some delays there. But the census is so important to Pennsylvania. For every person we don't count, we lose over $2,000. If we don't count 10 people, that's $20,000 a year, $200,000 over the 10-year period. So it's really, really important that we get a good count of everyone in our district because it funds special education, school lunches, K through 12 education, highways, healthcare. So I would like to ask everyone on the call, whether they're students or not, if for their homework they can make sure that their family has completed the census and that they text 5 friends and ask them to do the same thing. So that would just be my request.
Well, thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. We have made a census plug a routine part of this, so now you've done it. Thank you. And good luck as you go to the Rules Committee. Thank you very much, Congresswoman.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. And we are, I want to see if Representative Barrar is still on the call. He has a House Committee caucus meeting going on right now that he had to leave for. And I told him in the chat, I would love him to at least introduce himself before he departs. Representative Barrar, are you still with us?
Yes, I am. I'm still here.
Well, good. I know you have to run. I wanted to be first of all, thank you so much for being here. We are going to have this obviously taped on YouTube, so I know you can listen to the students. But before you jump, is there anything you'd like to say? Because I know you're late for your meeting.
Yeah, I figured I wanted to come on and at least let the our young students in the audience know we all are interested in what happens with education, not just the funding of education, but the quality of education. Then when you said there were students from Barrar, which is my school, my roots go back to Barrar. I got a great education there and so many great memories. And also Garnet Valley, I saw Andrew, who I've been to many of the scouting events that Andrew has attended. I know what a fabulous student he is, and he's an Eagle Scout, extremely accomplished young man. But I know the question came up earlier about the Congresswoman Scanlon talked about the IDEA, and that has really been a major cost to public education. And I have complained probably since the day it was passed about the cost of first of all, the program, and the fact that the federal government rarely ever keeps its commitments, especially in education. They promise to pay. I think that in IDEA law, it says they must pay 40% of the cost of special education. We might get, I think my school district doesn't even get 1% of the cost, but I know that most of our schools are probably getting anywhere from 9% to 11%, depending on the level and the number of students that they have that are special needs, that fit into that special needs category. It's been I know in Garnet Valley, the cost of special education, I think the last time we checked, and I know Bob Anderson was still in here, but the cost of special education in Garnet Valley is probably about $16 million. If the federal government would pay that 40% cost, that would free up dollars in other places that we could do the busing issue that was being talked about earlier. We could do so many other things with those tax dollars. My district, it's not uncommon to find houses in my district that have anywhere from a $12,000 to $32,000 school tax bill every single year. So I know people think, are people paying their fair share? My school taxes alone are $8,000 a year, which is a big burden to pay. But again, I tell my senior citizens, a lot of them that are opposed to paying school taxes, or they say people with gray hair shouldn't have to pay school tax. And I said, we need a well-educated workforce out there to make a lot of money and pay into Social Security, so that seniors like myself, I will be retired next year, will be able to still continue to collect Social Security. So if they're not making high incomes, we're going to be in trouble. But really, we want to see all our schools succeed. Okay.
Well, it's so important that you said that, because the kids we're going to hear from after you have to run right now, and I hope you will watch the video from your own students, are really the future here. And it's why we wanted to have this conversation today. So I want to thank you so much for taking the time, for having the sentiment that you do, that education is so important to the revival and the economy of this community, and working together with PCCY to help make sure the federal government and the state government steps to the plate. So thank you very much.
Donna, could I ask you one question before I go? Could you give my email address to the students so that anybody that had a question to me, I would love to get their questions, and if I don't have a chance, and have a chance to respond to them. Okay?
Yes.
Thank you very much, everyone.
We'll be happy to do so. Thank you so much. So we're going to shift right now and hear from Thomas Barnes from Haverford High School. Thomas, the floor is yours.
Hi, everybody. I was so sad to see Representative Scanlon leave so soon. I'm such a big fan. So if you're watching this later, just know you have a special place here in Haverford and Delaware County. Hello, PA legislators, superintendents, and community members. My name is Tommy Barnes. I'm a senior at Haverford High School, and I will be attending the University of Pittsburgh as a Nordenberg Leadership Scholar next year. Throughout my middle and high school tenure, all of the most intriguing and memorable educational experiences have occurred in manageable classroom sizes of 20 or less students. During my 4 years at Haverford, I've experienced varying amounts of classroom sizes, ranging from usually over 30 students to as little as 12 students. And the difference between the two educational experiences is grossly disparate. Being a humanities-focused student, I pounced on the opportunity to enroll in a second European history course this year, which, to no surprise, only consisted of 11 other confidently nerdy students. With an easily managed classroom size, the personalization of attention that the teacher could grant each student showed me how exceptional a public school education could be. And the ability to delve deep into complex and involuted discussions regarding enlightenment, religion, nationalism, and globalization made for a class that will never be forgotten. Haverford Township is currently experiencing somewhat of a population boom, resulting in the quick growth of grade sizes, which is forcing teachers to share classrooms and class sizes to regularly exceed 30 students. To account for this change, Haverford School District has begun the expensive process of renovating our schools to increase school space for ascending student capacities. It is no secret that Delaware County has some of the most prestigious private schools in the state. And it is always disheartening to hear private school friends boast about how their tens of thousands of dollars grants them an infinite amount of attention and care from their faculty members. It is absolutely essential for the public school students of Pennsylvania that after COVID-19, there will be adequately appropriated funds that allow for manageable classroom sizes so every student will have the opportunity to receive an education that is meaningful, exciting, and empowering to our lives. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. For everybody who's on, if you join late, we're going to hear from a series of students and then the lawmakers will be able to respond. Thomas, that was so well said, and we so appreciate you being here from Haverford High School. Franchesca Parker is from Interboro High School.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Franchesca Parker, and I'm from Interboro High School, and I'm in 11th grade. I've been a part of my school's theater program since the day I got to high school in 9th grade. When I got to high school, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. Theater. But before having a theater program in my life, it was hard because I never really belonged anywhere, and I always felt lost and kind of left out because theater wasn't a huge thing in other kids' lives in middle school, and no one really shared my interest. I went through times of thinking, do I really belong anywhere? And if I do, when am I going to find this place? And with being in middle school, it was kind of a hard thought to have at such a young age. Then along came Interboro Theater. This theater program means the world to me and has pulled me out of some of the darkest times that I've been in, and it continues to make me happy even in quarantine. Our directors, Shannon Oden and Hannah Knaus, have been nothing but supportive throughout this time with constant Zoom calls and chats over our Remind app. Whether it's about theater or just checking in on us, they have been here, and for that I'm forever grateful. Our theater program is very special. We're like a big family and care for each other inside and out of school. Having such a support system can really impact a student's life and make them feel wanted, accepted, and even teach students other things outside of a regular classroom. And I know for certain that Interboro Theater has helped me grow into the young woman I am today, and the memories of this program are ones that will last a lifetime. Thank you, Interboro Theater.
I don't know about everybody else, but I already feel like Thomas and Franchesca should be running the country. So thank you so much. How beautifully said. And the important role of your arts and the theater in your life is really important for us to keep in mind. Nasharie Stewart is from Penwood High School.
Hi everyone, it's truly an honor to be here. My name is Nasharie Stewart, I'm from Penwood High School, I'm a junior. I'd like to begin today by using a scenario. So can you imagine sitting in a 30-student classroom, shoulder to shoulder, where it is almost impossible to do something as simple as getting up to collect your textbook? That's delay number one. When you do collect your textbook, you happen to pick up the very last one, meaning that there are 10 other students in the classroom still without textbooks. No problem, you can pair up and still get the work done. But every student works at a different pace, and so while I am still reading from one page, my partner is ready to flip to the other. So now he or she has to wait. Their education has to wait. That's delay number 2. Finally, my partner and I are able to turn to the next page where we'll be answering questions. Only that page is missing. Not because the student carelessly ripped it out, but because the book is 11 years old and falling apart at the seams. That's delay number 3. Although these delays may appear in fleeting moments, over the course of the school year, they amount to hours. Hours lost due to inadequate resources. But those are only the short-term consequences. What about the long term? In addition to worn-out textbooks, there is an educational gap between schools that have the latest resources versus schools that do not. My school is one of many that unfortunately does not. And I'm afraid that against all my better efforts, one day that'll catch up to me. Education is not a means that can be unevenly distributed. Textbooks are the foundation where learning begins. While I understand that technology is improving, and due to that, textbooks are becoming non-essential, we must remember that technology is only a supplement, not a replacement. Information is constantly changing. The world is constantly changing with it. And it is important that textbooks that students use are up to date with all of those changes. Currently, we live in odd times where countless students are at home trying to continue their education, some without ideal internet access. Now more than ever, a good quality textbook for students to maintain their studies and not fall behind is essential. When students do return to school, we should return to adequate resources that can efficiently and effectively ensure that we have not fallen behind during the pandemic. This is an issue that we've been facing for years, but today that change can begin with all of you choosing to do what's right by students. I would like for you to envision a young student picking up a textbook for the very first time. The love for education beginning right there. A spark that you cannot get from the internet, and one you certainly cannot get from a 10-year-old textbook that's hardly legible. Please consider the millions of students who rely on textbooks and help provide schools with adequate resources. Thank you.
Wow, that's a very sobering scenario. Thank you so much, Nasharie. That was really, that really put us in your space. Thank you so much. Hard act to follow. Kathlene Flebbe from Penncrest High School.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kathlene Flebbe, and I'm a freshman at Penncrest High School currently. Due to the coronavirus and the lack of funding that will be following it, one point that I would like to bring up is how the teachers affect students' lives. Going back to elementary school, I have significant memories of how teachers have impacted my life and helped shape me into who I am today. When I was in 1st and 2nd grade, I went through a very stressful time and would randomly get very bad separation anxiety. All of my teachers understood this and they helped me through this. In 7th grade, I was very stressed with my classes and I did not think I could handle the math that I was in. My teacher pulled me aside one day and assured me that I could do it and that she would stay after to help me whenever I needed it. I really needed to hear that. All of my teachers have always been willing to talk if I needed to, and I've grown a bond with many of them. All of the teachers have been willing to help students when they needed it, whether it was class-related or not. Teachers are willing to drop plans to help you, and that says a lot. Our teachers put in many extra hours helping students, chaperoning dances, and putting together events to make our school experiences better. All of our teachers have made huge impacts on our lives, especially mine. I do not know where I would be today if my teachers did not understand me or had they not helped me get through the years with as little unnecessary stress as possible. Even though it may seem as though the teachers have too many students to care about them as individuals, they do care about each and every one of us. Our teachers' jobs need to be protected because they have protected us for all of the past years. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak.
Thanks, Kathlene. And I think you raise a really important point about the fact that the thing that will get cut when we have cuts is teachers, because that's the bulk of what we spend our money on in schools. So reminding us of the invaluable role they play, not only in instructing, but helping kids feel a place in school is so important. Thank you. Ellie Davis is from Radnor High School.
Thank you. And once again, thank you to the representatives for listening to us today. I've always loved learning and gaining wisdom from teachers whom I respect and admire. And overall, I've been really impressed with my school's transition to online learning. I'm grateful that the district has given the necessary technology to all students who might not be able to access the online learning otherwise, and we only lost a few days before we resumed the curriculum remotely. It's of course important to maintain Radnor's high quality education throughout upcoming budget problems, but To me, it feels disingenuous to stress the importance of maintaining the academic programs in Radnor when so many districts haven't even been able to transition to online learning because of the lack of resources. Earlier this year, I published an article in our school newspaper, The Radnorite, analyzing the drastic school funding inequality in Pennsylvania. I talked to lawyers from the Public Interest Law Center who are leading the lawsuit against the Pennsylvania Department of Education, and I visited some of the schools that they were representing that have struggled with inadequate funding for years. This crisis has only exacerbated and highlighted a bigger pre-existing problem, as Representative Scanlon mentioned. While some districts like Radnor have relatively easily continued to teach students remotely, students in other districts have lost months of valuable education time. All school districts, regardless of their local wealth, are going to take a hit in property tax revenue, but it's the districts that are already struggling to get enough funding from local taxes, even with some of the highest tax rates in the state, that are the most vulnerable. Everyone in the Commonwealth will end up worse off if all the suffering is concentrated in the districts that already cannot produce enough local revenue. During this crisis, we can't allow the students getting the short end of the stick to be left any further behind. Pennsylvania's school funding system puts far too much pressure on local property taxes to be deemed thorough and efficient in accordance with our state constitution. I urge the Pennsylvania General Assembly to prioritize the school districts that cannot rely on tax revenue alone. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ellie. And I will say that we're so fortunate in the Southeast, in Delaware County particularly, that so many of your state lawmakers who are here today share your depth of concern. And so they'll speak to that. We're going to hear from a couple more students. Harry Cotter from Riddler High School.
Hello, everyone. I'm Harry Cotter. I'm a senior at Ridley High School. Thank you all for coming today and listening to what we have to say. We often talk about a disconnect between national politicians and regular people, but sometimes there's also a disconnect on the local level. My school district's board is primarily composed of leaders of families that have lived in my community for generations and tend to have more wealth and/or power than the average person in our area. There are many low-income families in our community that are disproportionately Black and brown and have moved to the area relatively recently. I describe this condition to provide context for the reality of my school district. Most school board members enjoy certain fortunate circumstances, while the state has had to intervene in the past because of chronically low student achievement, particularly among Black students in one instance. I don't believe there's been any malicious action or inaction. There's just a disconnect. Many school districts will incorrectly prioritize or spend if they are forced to budget down to the last dollar. You can minimize the number of wrong decisions that could be made. At the same time that we're funneling hundreds of billions of dollars into corporations that live for strict budgeting, I ask you not to nickel and dime our school districts. Thank you.
Thank you for sending us that message about equity and about race and the disproportionate impact inside school districts as well as across the state. So really well said, Harry. Bryson Eldridge is from Sun Valley High School. Bryson, are you with us?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Bryson Eldridge, and I'm a senior at Sun Valley High School. With the school funding in question, there is something that is in danger of possibly getting cut that isn't getting enough attention. Speech and occupational therapy is a vital learning program for members of my school district, but often gets overlooked because of the small amount of students that participate. I've seen firsthand how speech therapy in my school district has been beneficial. My younger brother, who will be a freshman at Sun Valley High School this upcoming school year, has gone through speech therapy 3rd through 8th grade and has seen massive improvements regarding his stutter. This program is a great outlet for students whose family cannot afford speech therapy and is very important to keep. Students should not have to suffer and not get the help they need because the school couldn't afford to keep the program running. Some students are bullied because of their speech impediments, and this program is the only way that they can receive help and feel confident about themselves, which is why the program is so vital. Thank you very much.
So great of you to raise that because, again, it's important to think about the holistic role that schools play, right? And it's not just what happens in the classroom, but around the classroom that makes our kids so great. The last student speaker for this portion of the meeting is Kiran Shazadi from Upper High School.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. My name is Kiran Shazadi, and I'm a senior at Upper Darby High School. As a proud student of Upper Darby High School, I represent just one of the over 70 different languages our district serves. I must state that I am very grateful for the education and opportunities that I have received over the last 8 years. Upper Darby has truly provided me with many excellent opportunities in a unified school community. Imagine walking the halls of a high school with over 3,800 students who represent cultures from around the world. I doubt anyone on this call would argue that education is the foundation of a better future. But how will these things happen if our district is not funded properly? I know in my school district, we are obligated to provide an education to over 1,000 English learners and over 2,000 students in need of special education services. For so long, we had to do more with less. Upper Darby School District is underfunded between 14 and 19 million a year. Some schools in our districts have 30 or more students in a class. Students attend classes in schools outside of our district boundaries and attend classes in the modular trailers. We need updated facilities and equal opportunity to compete academically. We would love to have laptops to take home every day to improve our studies. The United States and the state of PA have decided that education is so important that we have to take standardized tests, that we have to be college and career ready. But what about the funds to help us perform and meet these standards? Without proper funding, how are these things possible? The answer is simple: to fund our schools properly, we just want the same opportunities as every other child. If we continue the way it is today, as it was yesterday, then the future for students who come from school communities like mine will continue to struggle to compete. Thank you for allowing me to speak today.
Well, Kiran, I think you did a spectacular job summing up the challenges before us, and we're going to turn to our lawmakers now. And I just want to, first of all, thank the students who did a spectacular job. You raised such important issues. We're so grateful you're here. I want to say to the students that I sincerely know that every one of the Delaware County lawmakers that represent you in the Pennsylvania legislature agree with you. And hearing you today gives them a way to take a message back to Harrisburg. So I want you to know you have a lot of champions on your side. And I'm going to turn to, we're going to do the Senate first. And I'm going to begin with Senator Tom Killian and then move to Senator Dalen Leach and Senator Tim Kearney to introduce yourselves. And basically, because we have students still lined up to ask some questions, what we'd like you to do as the lawmakers is just, take a minute, if you could, to respond, but we want to hear from a few more students. Thank you. Senator Killian. We'll see if Senator Killian returns or gets unmuted, and we'll move to Senator Anthony Williams.
Thank you, Donna, and thank you to the students and superintendents who are on here today. I was struck by every student who spoke today about their ability to articulate the challenges that we all see. But I will draw specific attention to two students. I believe it's Nasharie Stewart and Ellie Davis. Now, I represent a small portion of Edinburgh, William Penn, and Southeast Delco. I did hear from somebody from Edinburgh, but my mother was a school teacher. The disparity between those have and have-nots is the conversation that has been consistent for my entire lifetime in terms of public education. And I will frankly say to you all that I'm glad and I'm grateful. Those of you who have more are concerned about those who have less. That was not always the case, and frankly, is part of the problem we have in the Commonwealth today. Donna Cooper worked for one of the greatest governors ever, Governor Edwin Dell, and a funding formula conversation is still current. That means those of us who send more tax dollars to Harrisburg don't get them back, and then we have to debate about how we get them back into places that need them the most. So I'm grateful that many of you have the vision to talk about that. frankly, we also have to talk further about revenue streams. And beyond just taxing property, we have to talk about other things that will generate revenue well beyond the limited needs that we talk about today. And they're present today, especially in the middle of a pandemic. And so some of that, I don't want to talk about today online, but we're going to have to talk about in ways that we haven't talked about before. So there is hope at the end of this tunnel, but we have to have some political courage beyond our party affiliations to do that. And lastly, human capital, which we don't talk a lot about. We talk about financial limitations. The teaching profession is in decline. I don't mean because those who go into it, but because those who, we don't have the numbers to go into it, and therefore we don't have the quality. And we certainly don't have the diversity that we need in classrooms across the Commonwealth. My father came from poverty, ended up graduating from University of Penn Law School. So despite those limited challenges, he still made it through. So to my friend, Ms. Stewart, I was delighted to hear how articulate, how bright, how gifted you are, how passionate you are. And to our partner, Ellie Davis, who may or may not know one another, I'm grateful that there's a rope to climb up and that you have a hand to hand back. And to all of us who are going to fight for public education this year, I think more is going to get done than we would expect. We just need to move beyond our partisan lines and, frankly, the limited ways that adults think about things. So thank you very much for having us.
Thank you so much. You're perfect evidence to the students how we are down here fighting for kids. Thank you, Senator Williams. Senator Killian, I see you there, and I hope you're unmuted. I know you're also a champion, so please introduce yourself. Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. I would perfect follow-up to Senator Williams. He's exactly right. You know, I represent my district. I have school districts that are haves and the ones that are haves-nots, and it's extremely important that we work in a bipartisan fashion to fund education here in Pennsylvania. I was so pleased to hear from these students. They did a great job. I know he mentioned Governor Rendell. When I first got elected back in 2003 in the House, we passed a tax increase, and it's always a tough thing to do. And I was one of the handful of Republicans to support the governor increasing the personal income tax in Pennsylvania because it was earmarked for education. There's nothing more important. I mean, we have a lot of things we need to worry about in Harrisburg, but our school districts and our children have to be number one. I can tell you I have a good feeling right now about our future hearing these students that we just heard. And I'm looking forward when we get back to Harrisburg working with my colleagues on both sides of the aisle as we look to fund education in these difficult times. And we're going to need to look outside the box. I mean, as we all know, with the pandemic, the revenues are significantly down, and we got to put everything on the table, and we got to do everything we can to make sure we fund our schools adequately. So I'm looking forward to get back to Harrisburg so we can all begin to work on that. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here today, Senator. It's so important that we have a bipartisan consensus on supporting public education. So we're so grateful that you're there. I'm going to turn to Senator Tim Kearney.
Thank you, Donna. I echo my colleagues. What a great group of students. I mean, all the questions were, all their comments and questions were very well thought out and articulated, and I do feel confident about, it gives me hope for the future. I just wanted to point out that we're going through a crisis, the magnitude of which none of us has really seen in our lifetime. But as a society, when we've been in these kind of situations, we've been able to generate some of the best social benefit programs that we've ever done. You know, the Great Depression brought us Social Security. The World War II brought us the GI Bill and other things. We should think boldly about the way we're going to come out of this and listen to the voices that we're hearing here. You know, Pennsylvania, yeah, we're 47th in terms of funding for education. Well, we're 49th in terms of equity between our districts. And my district, as everybody's here, has haves and have-nots, and the struggle we have is real. We're, you know, it was mentioned before about the Constitution. I mean, I don't think we're living up to our constitutional mandate. 25 years ago, we provided 50% of the cost to educate each student. Now we're around 32%. It doesn't seem fair to me. And I agree about the, you know, property taxes are outrageous, and people with gray hair like me have trouble sometimes paying those taxes. So it's good. But thank you, Donna. Thank you for organizing this.
Yeah.
Thank you for all the students who spoke today.
Thank you very much, Senator Kearney. And again, an indication that there's a growing consensus we need to change how we do this. And Senator Dalen Leach is the last senator with us this morning. Good morning, Senator.
Good morning, Donna, and it was great to hear from all of the students. As my colleagues have said, you know, we are dealing with a situation that is unprecedented. We weren't funding schools adequately before. I know Donna will remember back when we did the costing out study, and that talked about, you know, billions of dollars that we were underfunding our schools. We took certain steps forward to try to remedy that, but we never got where we needed to be. And now we're facing an unprecedented situation with a huge deficit. We have to have a balanced budget, and you know, it's going to be tough to figure out how to do that. And we can't. It's not. There's like whole sections of the budget we can't cut because of the law. And so you know, we're really going to have to fight hard to make sure the public schools continue to receive the funding that they need. We may not be able to make a lot of progress this year in terms of making up some of the shortfalls, but at least we need to work on holding people harmless. Because, you know, I listen to the students here, and it is a shame. Every person, every student, this is their life. This is the only education you'll ever have. And we have a moral obligation to make sure that we provide you the best one that it's possible to provide you. So I'm looking forward to going up. I don't know if we're going to be going up, but getting on Zoom with my colleagues as we address the budget, and you know, being creative, being courageous, being bold, but prioritizing your lives, because you know, frankly, it's good for you, but it's good for us. We need your talent, we need your skill, and we need you to drive our future. So looking forward to those discussions and those battles, and looking forward to hearing your questions today. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. Thank you to the senators that are with us. Representative Leanne Krueger, we'd like to hear from you. We're now in the House.
Thanks, Donna. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for your comments. I have a second grader that you may have seen in the background that I'm homeschooling virtually while legislating, and I understand what kind of challenge this is right now. We're actually incubating caterpillars because he's not able to do that in a second grade classroom. So we've got 10 caterpillars metamorphosizing here in the dining room with me as we speak. I was struck by everything you said, but in particular, Harry and Bryson, Ridley High School and Sun Valley High School are in my districts. We've got high school interns when we're not closed during a pandemic, and both of you were incredibly impressive. I'd love to have you join us as interns at some point. And Bryson, I went through speech therapy when I was in elementary school, and so I absolutely understand the value of that service and all the services that you all have talked about. I'm on the Appropriations Committee, as are a number of my colleagues on this call, and we are starting to talk about the state budget. And what Mary Gay said early on is that Pennsylvania has not done its job in funding public education. And every single year we're battling to make sure that our public schools get the resources they need. And in the 5 years that I've been in office, oftentimes we've passed budgets that haven't fully funded our schools. And, you know, I saw William Penn and the list. You may know that there's a court case moving right now where a number of schools, including a district in Delaware County, and parents and kids are suing the state for not doing our job. I believe our Constitution guarantees a right to equal and equitable education for all kids in Pennsylvania, and that's one of the things I'm fighting for. And one of the things that I will continue to fight for as we go into negotiations on this budget. So Harry, Bryson, hope to connect with you in the future, and thank you to all of our young leaders today for their work. I'm going to have to jump off on a briefing that was scheduled after this, but thanks so much for the opportunity to join you today.
Thank you. To the other lawmakers that are with us, we're going to get to student questions to you in a few minutes. I want to see if Representative Chris Quinn, are you on? Can you unmute yourself and speak to the students?
So I am certainly not Representative Chris Quinn, but my name's Colleen Ekman. I am here for the representative. Unfortunately, he had a very late scheduled, I believe last night he was notified of an appropriation meeting that he's in Zoom format as well. So we're doing double duty here. So on behalf of the representative, I'd just like to thank you for putting this panel together. This is very, very helpful. I certainly will take all the issues back to him so that he's well briefed on this. And of course, if there's any follow-up questions that students want to ask him directly, he's always available for a phone call, or you could email him and we'll absolutely get you an answer. But education is one of his #1 priorities, certainly. And during this budget season, he will be absolutely looking to make sure we continue to make sure education is funded properly. So thank you all.
So much. Thanks a lot. Thank you. Representative Maria Donatucci. I believe I saw Representative Donatucci. I don't know if you're speaking and muted, but we'll come back around. So we want to move to Representative. Oh, good. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, because I have to jump off.
Yeah.
So I want to thank everybody for being here today. And I think my video went off. It's crazy. And I want to thank the students. They were remarkable. How you doing, Donna? I'm going to go back to what Congresswoman Scanlon said. We're 47th in how we fund our education. We rely too much on local taxes to fund our education. There is a fair funding formula. I believe we're using 12% of the new money. We need to change that ratio. That's a big part of the problem, and that's what we need to fight for. So I think that as we go in, I am on appropriations, as are a few of my colleagues here. We have to push these new bills to use more of that funding, because it is not equal and it isn't fair. So that's where we're going, and that's where we're heading, and we need to do it. And I want to thank these students today. They were remarkable. They hit it all on the head. If they see it, everybody else needs to see it. Write your elected officials and tell them we need fair funding.
Well, what a great suggestion. We'll make sure each of the students send what they said today to their lawmakers too. Although most of you are all here. So we will, Representative Mike Zabel. Thank you, Maria. As Representative Mike Zabel.
Thank you.
Oh, you surprised me. I'm so used to going last with a last name like Z. Happy to jump in. I know I'm standing between you guys and questions and answers, so I won't take too long. I used to be a teacher myself. When I graduated college, I taught for 7 years. It was one of my favorite things I ever did, and I thought I would just take a chance real quick to give some thoughts on some of the students that we heard from today. So Tommy, you mentioned classroom sizes. I have taught classes as small as 8 and as large as 60, and you're absolutely right. The size of the classroom is huge. It's really important. It affects the teacher, it affects the classes, and we've got to find a way from Haverford and every other school district to get those class sizes down, because that's where the good learning environments come. Franchesca, I too found my voice in a theater program in high school. It was very important to me. And I think the arts programs are just as important as the maths and sciences in terms of helping students find who they are. So know that we're supported for that. Nasharie, Penwood, I've been in that high school. That high school hasn't been renovated since 1983, I think. And it's just not fair what kind of resources are given to your school district. I represent part of William Penn, and I am committed to fighting like heck to make sure that you guys get those resources. Kathleen, thank you for saying protect our teachers. As a teacher myself, I can tell you when you teach, you don't do it for the money, you do it because you love students and you love what you do. And we've got to make sure those jobs are safe. And Ellie, thank you for being a voice for the underfunded school districts in Pennsylvania. Right now, there are school districts that continue to get increases in their budget, even though their student population is going down. They're building football stadiums while other places are trying to get textbooks. And thank you for bringing up the Pennsylvania Constitution, because you have a constitutional right to a good public education here. And Harry, you're absolutely right. We focus sometimes in the I'm new to the legislature, but we love to give money away to big corporations, and we're starving some of our schools, and we've got to do better on that front. You're absolutely right. Bryson, you told some a powerful story about your brother. Thank you for sharing that. Those are the kind of stories that we need to take to Harrisburg to make sure people are heard. And Kiran in Upper Darby. I was just at Upper Darby the other day. It's my main school district. It's where my 2 young children very well may go to high school. So, and I love what a rich, multicultural, diverse place Upper Darby is. And it does not get its fair share from the state. And despite that, still does a wonderful job. But just imagine if they didn't have to fight for every nickel and dime, and they were given the same chances that some places in other parts of the state are. So know that we're all out there fighting for it. And thank you all for sharing your stories.
Thank you so much. And it's always great to have a teacher in the state legislature. Representative Margot Davison. Representative Davison, are you muted?
Yes, I am unmuted. Thank you so much, Donna, for all the work done through the years on behalf of children and youth and society as a whole. Just so many thoughts are going through my mind as I listen to the students and their stories and their heart as it relates to public education and the educational system that they're a part of right now. In the state, we're of course looking at a $4 billion
Representative Davison, can I interrupt you for 1 second?
Property taxes will be delayed, and revenues are down in our school districts. That's the stark reality that we face in the midst of this pandemic.
Representative Davison, can you hear me?
However, our students still deserve the very best education that the state can afford.
We're going to have to, Representative Davison, we're going to have to see if we can get you back on.
Yes.
Because we can't really hear you.
Yes.
So let's stop for 1 second, see if we could figure that out, and move to Representative Jen O'Mara.
Thank you, Donna, and thank you, everyone, especially all the students for joining us today. I wanted to say that I agree with everything my colleagues have said. We are very busy fighting for public education in Harrisburg, but I wanted to address some of the things. I wanted to address some of the things that the students said. Franchesca, for me, is student council, not Interborough Theater.
Can you hear me?
And Andy Costanza was the teacher that helped me. And even still to this very day, one of my teachers is on this call and texted me to give me a little pep talk because he could see I wasn't looking like my normal smiling self. So the relationship that you build with your teachers, Kathlene, you talked about this too, it's so important. And I just want to say, I'm sorry that you're missing the end of your year and you don't get to have that end of year experience with all of your classmates and your teachers. But this is an experience that one day you will think back on and tell your friends and your children and the other people in your life about. So try to make the most of it while you can and know that you will be back in school one day. And when you get there, you will have people like me and the rest of my colleagues fighting for public ed in Delco because we have to do better for all of you. So I just want to thank you for sharing and for inspiring all of us to continue to fight for the things that matter.
Thank you so much. And Representative Davison, if you can hear me, we couldn't hear you. So we're going to call your cell, see if we can figure out how to work that out. And before we move to the student questions, I just want to double check, is Representative Dave Deloso on? Okay.
Did I make it? Did I make the trip?
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Donna, and thank everyone for being on the call. You know, unfortunately, when you get to go last, there's not a whole lot left to be said. I'm a freshman legislator, and like a lot of high school freshmen, I'm still trying to find the men's room on every floor in the Capitol. But when you go to the Capitol, you go with a couple ideas, and one of the ideas we went there with was fair funding of schools. Now, the fair funding formula, you know, on its surface sounds perfect, but it ultimately there's a fairer way to do these things. And I appreciate Harry from Ridley. Both my kids went to Ridley. And Franchesca from Interborough. Interborough does more with a dime than any other school district in the county, and I also represent Southeast Delco School District. I think going into the future, post-pandemic or even during the pandemic, we're going to have to find alternative streams of revenue to fund our schools. There's a lot of ideas out there, and I think both sides of the aisle are looking forward to finding a better way to fund our schools. I know in my district, the senior citizens are very upset at the escalation in their property taxes. Nonetheless, we have to fund our schools. We just have to find a better way to fund our schools. I look forward to post-pandemic, like everyone's looking forward to post-pandemic. I think I'm hopeful that now that I know where most of the men's room are, that I can sit down and help find a way to fairly fund our schools. I look forward to working with all of you in the future. My office is in Ridley Park on Chester Pike, and we're available to you. And Donna, thank you for hosting this event.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So we're going to start, and I want to apologize to this terrific student from Academy Park High School, whose name I might say incorrectly, but Karma Mansaleh has a question for the lawmakers. And what we're going to do is take one person's answer, and so you could let me know in the chat what lawmaker might want to do this, and we'll move through. We have 7 or 8 students with questions. So please correct your name as you introduce yourself. I'm sure I didn't say it correctly.
Hello.
Hello.
Perfect. All right. I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Karamo Mansaleh. As Ms. Cooper mentioned, I am a senior at Academy Park High School, and I'd like to present a bit of my story and follow up with a question. As a scholarly Black African Muslim male in a low SES who was the son of 2 immigrants, my story is deeply rooted in self-advocacy. Speaking more to that, I felt a lack of representation for culture and religion at my school. Therefore, other students and I created the representation by forming both the Muslim Students and African Students Associations. These groups provide students with a sense of community as well as foster leadership skills so they continue making a difference. Even with these groups reaching over half the school population, the budget deficit in my school limited us in our activities beyond standard meetings. I know there's an after-school activities grant in Connecticut which provides funding for educational, enrichment, and recreational activities for students in grades K through 12, serving over 6,000 students. So I ask, how will you, as my representatives and senators, work to ensure that the programs at my school begin receiving funding and flourish as time goes on? Thank you for your time.
Is there a lawmaker that wants to respond?
Well, I might be the only Parker on the phone call. I went to Academy Park.
Go for it.
What I'd like to say, Karamo. What I'd like to say is that ultimately, when we break these things down and we get to a fair funding formula or a fairer way of funding our schools, there should be money for more extracurricular activities. I'll steal a little thunder from my friend and colleague Mike Zabel, where Mike was right. You know, in other parts of the states, they're building. In other parts of Pennsylvania, they're building football stadiums at school districts that have huge surpluses. You know, meanwhile, we're stitching band uniforms back together, and we're eliminating our extracurricular activities. Ultimately, I'd be glad to work. For the citizens of the 162nd to find a fairer way to fund schools, so that so much of my high school was involved in after-school activities funded by the school. I'd like to see this for you.
Thank you so much, and I'm so glad you're an alum. You're the perfect person to answer that. Thank you, Representative. Amy Hogg from Strathaven High School has a question.
Hello, everyone. My name is Amy Hogg, and I'm a junior at Strathaven. So throughout my high school career, the music department at Strathaven has presented me with so many opportunities, whether that be traveling to different countries or just supporting my community through music. And I know that many of my peers, for many of my peers, the arts and music have opened many doors for their futures. And I wonder, with budget cuts, are the arts seen as a priority? And if not, how will students continue to have these opportunities?
Is there a lawmaker that wants to jump in on that?
I don't know if you can hear me now.
Yes, we can. We're very happy to have you. This is Representative Margot Davison. Thank you.
Yes, arts has certainly been a priority for a number of lawmakers. It's certainly been a priority of mine as a representative of the Upper Darby School District. And in the past, I've been very successful in getting additional funds for Upper Darby school districts for the Save Upper Darby Arts program a few years ago. So there is interest in the legislature to fund arts programs. The problem is getting to 102. But certainly I know a number of lawmakers, particularly in Delaware County, will be fighting to make sure that art is a part of the educational experience for our students.
Oh, perfect. Thank you, Representative Davison, and I'm so glad we could hear you. Thank you. Perfect. And great answer, Sue. Maggie Allison from Penncrest High School has a question.
Hi, I'm Maggie Allison, and I'm a freshman at Penncrest High School, and I just want to say thank you all for having me. I've been playing soccer for the past 11 years, and I was on the varsity soccer team this past fall for Penncrest, and I would be devastated to see sports on the list of things that are no longer available due to lack of funding. I know that with the current situation that we are in, we aren't sure exactly when things are going to get better. So my question is, do you think that sports, especially those with not a lot of funding, are they going to be able to resume in the fall or even in the winter for our student athletes?
Don, I can take that.
Thank you so much, Senator Killian.
Yeah, thanks for your question. And, you know, that's all part of making sure we do what we can to get to the school districts the funding need. You've heard throughout this call how we're going to work to make sure the schools are funded adequately as best we can. And as I said a little earlier, we're going to need to think outside the box as we look, given the fact that our revenues are down due to COVID-19. And it's the final decision, obviously, on sports and extracurricular activities and arts. It's made at the school board level, but they make those decisions based upon the economics of their situation. So it's important for us to make sure we fund the schools adequately so they have the dollars they need to make sure students get to play soccer like you. And I'm sorry you lost the last part of your senior year playing soccer. I know that had to be difficult, but we're going to work here. I pledge to work across the aisle as I've always had with my colleagues. Education is not a partisan issue. It's not Republican. It's not Democrat. It's about our children and about our future. Thank you.
Thank you. June Park has a question from Haverford High School.
Hi, I'm June. I'm a senior at Haverford High School. Throughout my time at Haverford, I was fortunate enough to be able to participate in a lot of extracurricular activities. In particular, I was able to work with both the Young Democrats and Future Republicans at Haverford to host voter registration drives and register over 600 seniors since 2018. And then by being able to do these kind of things, I was able to discover two important lessons, that you can get things done in a bipartisanship manner, and that my passion is studying political science, which I'll be continuing at Harvard this fall. But I want to make sure that the next generation of students get the same extracurricular opportunities that, like I did, to find something that is meaningful to them. So representatives and senators, how will you ensure that all students, regardless of socioeconomic backgrounds in Delaware County, can get equal access to extracurricular activities, especially those fostering civic engagement and community service? Thank you.
Well, June, let me just say, I feel like what a great question, and it echoes what Representative Davison and Killian just said. So if a lawmaker wants to respond, that would be great. But I feel like on the record at this point, people have said they really want to fight for the resources. Would anybody like to add anything to that? Because it's a great question. And what I want to do, June, if you're open to this, is there are 4 more students that have questions. I want to have them state their questions, and then we'll get those 5, yours and the 4, all on the record for the lawmakers to maybe make a comment to. The next is Saif Ghazi from Radnor. Saif, are you on?
Sorry, hi everyone. My name is Saif Ghazi. I'm a junior at Radnor High School. So through the pandemic, we've seen that an online education can be invaluable. And thus, I think we can all agree what a necessity that is access to Wi-Fi and an adept technological device for a well-rounded education can be. So I was wondering, what happens to students whose schools might lose funding and who cannot afford to purchase their devices on their own, and whose schools cannot, and whose schools are not able to provide the aforementioned devices? What alternative might these students have in this current climate or in the upcoming years?
Well, I think you raise a really critical question that goes to planning and resources. And what we're going to do is get the other 3 questions on, and then any lawmaker can answer these. Hunter Hammock from Springfield High School. Hunter, are you here?
Yes, can you hear me?
Now we can.
All right, I am having a little bit of camera difficulties. Let me fix this. There, hey, can you see me?
Not yet, but start talking, maybe it'll happen.
All right, no, oh, hey, I'm here, awesome. So hello, my name is Hunter Hammock, and I'm a rising senior in Springfield Senior High School. And as we are learning to adapt to a new normal, both in and out of the classroom, I believe that technology has done well and will do better for student education. We have been stuck in a type of classroom where information is picked from sources, put into print in a book, then take those picked notes from a book, put them onto our notebooks, memorize them, and then write those facts onto paper tests. This is pretty much the same practice over and over again since public education was started. And as my mom often says, do you know what the definition of insanity is? Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. And I'm sure you know the rest. So my question to lawmakers is, why do schools focus on textbooks rather than technology? And is there a way that we can fix that issue? Is it really more cost effective in the long run? And I understand the issue with internet from homeschool issues. And my thoughts are focused on when we return to the classroom. And also, is there a possibility we could focus on technology in all fields and up and coming technology to prepare us for post-secondary education and our future?
Well, thank you so much, Hunter, because I think you really ask a prescient question about the role of books and the role of technology in education going forward. And it does mean we need to think about this more deeply. And we need to do it in a way that ensures equity, that not simply the wealthier school districts figure this out and the lower income school districts are sort of scrambling to find the resources to begin the conversation. So thank you. We'll ask lawmakers after we hear from Brandon Powell from Delaware County Technical High School's question. I've seen Brandon on the, are you on? Can you unmute yourself? Brandon.
Brandon unfortunately had to get off. Brandon's actually on the job site, but he did for me a small statement that he could make if you want me to read. I'm the principal, Dan Palmer, his principal at his technical school.
Please do so. So his voice is here, yeah.
Sure. So let me turn my camera on so you know I'm alive here. So Brandon has a statement. I'll read it and then I'll kind of push the question out to the lawmakers. Again, I'm the technical school principal, Dan Palmer, in Fallcroft. So Brandon is a junior, upcoming senior, and is a senior in our building trades program at Delaware County Technical High School in Fallcroft. Brandon comes to us from the Pendelco School District, which is Sun Valley High School, and has concerns about CTE funding. And this is what it wrote. Career and technical education programs provide students with pathways to high school, high-paying careers in demand industries, including healthcare, IT, transportation, advanced manufacturing, health occupations, and rigorous and competitive employment. So Brandon really wants to know that what are our legislators going to do to help support CTE funding going forward, and that all of our students and all of our staff going forward are essential workers participating in this pandemic going on at this time.
Super question. I'm going to take the last question from the student and then open it up to lawmakers. Actually, it's two more students. Deja Walker from Chester High School. And I apologize if I said your name wrong.
My name is Deja Walker. I am a senior at Chester High School, and due to the pandemic, a number of things have became very hard for us. But one of our main struggles, the technology and home access.
So Deja, can I interrupt you for 1 second? We can't hear you.
What are people doing about being able to get technology but not being able to have internet at home?
So what I think you said is you want to know what people are doing do instruction where people don't have internet at home. Maybe you could complete your, not really. So would you be so kind as to type your question into the chat? And we have had a student who joined us here today, Mark from Penwood. I'm gonna ask Mark to ask his question.
Can you hear me now?
And we still can't hear you. So Mark, can you ask your question, and then we're gonna round up with any comments from the lawmakers. Thank you.
Hello everyone, can you all hear me?
Yes.
All right, so my name is Mark, and I'm a sophomore at Penwood High School. And I've been in the school for almost 2 years. But every day you will go to school and you will see people going back and forth in the hallway, shouting and making all these noises, while there are some other students in the class busily learning. So if there are rules and regulations in these schools, how are the school district, the school administration, and the rest going to make sure that these students abide to these rules that govern the school?
Great question. So you all as state lawmakers have heard questions about technology, about extracurricular activities, around career tech ed resources, about the need for schools to have enough adults to keep things quiet enough for people to learn. Does anybody want to make any comments back to the students to give them a sense of what you think is important for the state to do in this regard?
Yeah, I would like to, and I'll be brief in case anyone else wants to chime in. The first thing I want to just explain, I know a lot of us have talked about the fair funding formula, but to break down what that means for the students is that we want to fund the schools based on the number of student that attends that school rather than an outdated formula. So if we're able to do that, there will be an increase of funding to all of your schools, and we hope will be invested in the very things that you're talking about because we know how important they are. I also want to address Brandon's question about CTE, and I know he's not on here, but hopefully Mr. Palmer can take it back for him. So one of the things I've been working on in Harrisburg in a bipartisan way, which I know June would like, is the Student Debt Caucus. And our goal is to raise awareness about the crushing reality of attending college for many of you students, which I know many of you are thinking about if you're in that position. And what I want, and Megan and I want to do, is redirect that conversation for you all and put more options on the table that promote things like CTE and technical schools, because there are really good paying jobs that you can find by starting there or starting at a community college that will lessen that financial burden that you're worried about. So that is definitely something that I hope we can continue to work on in Harrisburg. And again, I just want to thank all of you for your amazing questions and participation today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Representative Barrar. Yes.
I also wanted to jump in if I could, since I wasn't able to be heard initially. I just wanted to say that on this call, I really have appreciated hearing the students' voices on the issues that they care about. Kiran and Nasharie talking about the Upper Darby and William Penn school districts where I represent. And all of the questions that were just asked really had to do with how are we going to fund the different aspects of education that are important to students. Everything from career and technical education to quiet learning environments, to arts and education, to all of the things that mean something to students. And when I used to teach after school programs, I would always say, you never know what is going to spark in the life of a child, that will be their career path and will be their contribution to society. So we need to fund all of these things, because one of these things are going to be a tremendous impact on students' lives and on our societies. And so we, with the $4 billion deficit and the lack of property tax resources that will be coming to our schools, we really have to get to 102 in the Pennsylvania House and 26 senators in the Senate that will prioritize public education and education to our students. We have just not been able to get where we need to get. We have not been able to get to that 102. And the legislators on this call, as Donna has said, is absolutely committed to funding public education and have been fighting for years, and we will continue that fight. And just know that we will take your voices back to Harrisburg on everything that you said, from classroom size to stress and anxiety in students, to teacher-student connections, to textbook inequities, to technology deficits, special needs, and second languages. All of those things are vitally important, and we will be fighting for those things in Harrisburg, every single one of them. And that's what I wanted to say.
Well, thank you so much. And I think, you know, that is a spectacular way to bring our conversation to a close, because I think Representative Davison, you have really echoed the sentiments of the entire Delaware County delegation of the importance of focusing both on the local revenue loss, the state revenue loss, and making sure as we think about that, the needs of these students don't get sacrificed. PCCY is so grateful that you participated today. As I said, we're having these conversations in Bucks County, Montgomery County, Philadelphia County, Delaware County, and we are working with partners across the state so that we can build a consensus of 102 state representatives, 26 senators, to deliver on the promise and the opportunities that these students expressed as so important. We want to thank you very much for being here today. We're going to post this video. We hope that you will share, all the students, share this with your friends and families. Lawmakers, take these voices to Harrisburg. Help you build that consensus. And we stand ready with everybody here to make sure that the current budget comes to closure with the stimulus funds and the budget in a way that keeps our schools whole. Thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.